It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. After months of waiting, former Children's Commissioner Baroness Anne Longfield is announced as the chair of the National Grooming Gangs Inquiry.
The first serving member of the UK Armed Forces has been killed in Ukraine since Russia launched its full-scale war.
A new tirade from President Trump, who says Europe is weak and decaying. We'll see him live at a rally with his supporters in the next hour. An investigation into a British agent inside the IRA says the security services allowed him to commit murder and then impeded the inquiry. Go and read a book, the Australian Prime Minister's advice to teenagers after banning them from social media. And in the Champions League, Liverpool clinch victory over Inter Milan in their first match since leaving Mo Salah out of the team. Plus, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Hello there, good evening. The Home Secretary says it will be a moment of reckoning for the nation. Tens of thousands of young girls were groomed, sexually abused and then failed by the people and agencies who should have protected them. Today, after months of waiting, the government announced that former Children's Commissioner and Labour peer Anne Longfield will lead a national inquiry. Some survivors have already questioned her independence. Jason Farrell has this report.
The women bold enough to tell us their stories over many years now finally know who will attempt to lead the investigation into the institutions and the people who failed them.
What is required now is a moment of reckoning. We must cast fresh light on this darkness. The inquiry will be chaired by Baroness Anne Longfield.
Anne Longfield, appointed Children's Commissioner by David Cameron, is a respected advocate for children. She gave evidence to the COVID inquiry on the impact of lockdown, produced numerous reports on forms of exploitation, and helped raise the alarm on County Line's drug gangs.
The kids that I meet who are the ones that are what they would call the collateral, the ones that are doing the operational stuff on the ground, being groomed. These are often small, vulnerable children.
But in a press conference on Monday, the opposition called for a judge to lead the inquiry. Alongside them was survivor Fiona Goddard, who today tweeted she was disappointed at the appointment. As is Marlon West, father of survivor Scarlett, who was groomed and sexually exploited as a teenager. His concern is the new chair is a Labour peer, an establishment figure.
She's historically a long-term member of Labour. And a lot of the survivors are concerned with trust around Labour, especially what's previously happened over the last few months. We wanted legal representative. The reason for that is many of the survivors have not had any justice legally, and we was hoping that it would be a judge.
But the woman who blew the whistle in Rotherham, exposing the exploitation of 1,400 girls, Jane Senior, believes that the new chair is right for the job.
I've known Anne for a lot of years. She's very children-focused, and I do believe she'll do a good job. And I think her and Baroness Louise Casey together will be quite a formidable team, and will get us to the answers that we've been waiting for 20 plus years.
Some of the survivors saying she's a bit too much of a Labour establishment figure. What would you say to them?
I think we need to put politics to one side of this, and we need to search for the truth.
Home Secretary.
The opposition asked this.
So can the Home Secretary assure the House that those in authority who covered up these crimes will be prosecuted for the offence of misconduct in public office? And will she ensure the inquiry refers such cases to the police for investigation?
The answer was yes. This review also promises to look at ethnicity of perpetrators, institutional and individual failures, and it will be time limited to 3 years.
Well, Jason joins us now. There is so much to investigate here, isn't there? Have they finally found someone acceptable to allow a national inquiry to go ahead?
Well, with Anne Longfield, they've got someone who is really driven, people describe as a force of nature. You know, she is someone who's got experience. She is someone who I can vouch will care about this. She will care about the people. I know that on other things that she's worked on. She does have to address this problem that she is Labour affiliated, and that means she's got to win over the trust of the survivors, and that's a tough gig. She's not a judge, and some will say she hasn't got the experience that they feel that is needed to run such as huge inquiries as you say it is. And I think then, you know, we've got these draft terms of reference from the government, which is answering some of the questions. Yes, they're going to focus on grooming gangs. They're being very specific around that. It looks like they're not going to broaden the scope. It looks like they're going to focus on ethnicity. They're going to do local investigations with a national overview. And I get the sense from that won't give us, for example, if people want to know the total scale of what's going on, you're not going to get that because they're going to be localised. They have to then decide which areas. Like, are we going to go for key areas like the ones we know about, the Bradfords, the Alfords, the Telfords, the Rotherhams, the Rochdales, or are we going to look in other places that perhaps have been a little bit underlooked at, underseen, you know, like we did our investigation in Hull. There was a problem there. That hasn't been properly looked at. And then I think it has to say to itself, what do we want to achieve? What questions are we trying to answer here? And I'm afraid there are lots of people with lots of different questions. Some will want a complete breakdown of the ethnicity of everybody involved in this. Some will want this big overview. And some will want more granular things like people being held to account, those people who made mistakes. So those are the big questions that they're going to answer, hopefully over the next 3 months. What do we want to achieve? What do we hope is going to be the answers that we're going to give at the end of this that are going to change things and shine a light on what went wrong?
Lots of work ahead. Jason, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Now, a serving member of the British Armed Forces has been killed in an accident in Ukraine. Our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes, joins us now from outside the Ministry of Defence. And Deborah, the Prime Minister leading messages of condolence tonight. But what do we know about this incident?
Yeah, so it's a very unusual statement from the Ministry of Defence earlier today, confirming that this serviceman died today following what they described as a tragic accident while he was observing the Ukrainian military testing a weapon away from the front line. Now, we don't know where exactly that happened. We don't know when, whether the actual accident happened today and he died on the same day or whether it happened a few days ago. But of course, it is... the UK has confirmed before that it has a small group of military personnel in Ukraine. Some of them are attached to the embassy, providing security. Others are providing support to the Ukrainian armed forces. Now, the Sun newspaper is reporting tonight that the serviceman who was killed was a member of the Special Forces. The Ministry of Defence is neither confirming nor denying that. But you can be sure that Russia will be watching this and potentially seeking to make mischief with the confirmation of a British person, a British service person, a serving British person being killed as evidence that the UK is actually on the ground fighting with the Ukrainian forces, which is not the case. Yes, there have been former military personnel who have decided to join the fight alongside the Ukrainians, and a number of them have been killed. But in terms of the serving UK military presence, it's only a small number, and they are there in a very much a supporting role.
Deborah, thank you. US President Donald Trump has sharply criticised Europe, saying it is weak and decaying. In an interview with Politico, he accused European leaders of talking too much and failing to deliver.
I think they're weak, but I also think that they want to be so politically correct. I think they don't know what to do. Europe doesn't know what to do. They don't know what to do on trade either. I mean, I look at a lot of the trade situation that's going on over there. It's a little bit dangerous, but Europe, they want to be politically correct, and it makes them weak. That's what makes them weak.
Well, Donald Trump himself has come under fire for those comments about Europe from, of all people, the Pope. Here's what Pope Leo said after his meeting with Ukraine's President Zelensky in Rome.
I think, unfortunately, some of parts of it that I have seen make a huge change in what was for many, many years a true alliance between Europe and the United States. The remarks that are made about Europe, also in interviews recently, I think are trying to break apart what I think needs to be a very important alliance today and in the future.
Well, let's bring in our US correspondent, David Blevins, who joins us from Washington. So even the Pope, David, lamenting the potential breaking of this true alliance with Europe. But for Mr. Trump himself, back to campaigning tonight, domestic matters like post-tariff inflation.
That's right. He is back on the stump for the first time in a long time, back to Pennsylvania. It mattered so much in last year's election, and it's going to matter again in next year's midterms. I think we're likely to hear more of his extravagant claims around the economy. For example, he says he's reducing drug prices by, wait for it, 1,500%, that he might give Americans $2,000 each in tariff revenue, that he might even abolish income tax altogether. And he's using that kind of language because the White House senses the danger in the economy. Americans are feeling the pinch. All we have to do is look at some recent polling. For example, the Gallup poll of adults shows that just 36% of people approve of his handling of the economy, 62% disapprove. In a Fox News poll of registered voters, 38% approve and 61% disapprove of his handling of the economy. Donald Trump knows he can't simply say it's all going to be okay. That was the approach to some extent taken by the Democrats, and we know how that worked out for them. And all of this pressure at home on the economy may explain why he remains very bullish on foreign affairs. His comments on Zelensky and on European leaders clearly following a pattern now. He's simply verbalising the U-turn on American foreign policy contained in that national security strategy we've been talking about, a strategy that for the first time questions the reliability of European countries as allies, a comment that has prompted even Pope Francis to express the concern he has about that European United States alliance.
David, for the moment, thank you. We'll hear from you later, of course, because Donald Trump will be addressing that rally of his supporters in around an hour. We will bring you that live. Now, an investigation into a British agent inside the IRA says the security services allowed him to commit murder and then impeded the inquiry. Freddie Scappaticci led a ruthless IRA unit known as the Nutting Squad. He was linked to 14 murders and 15 abductions. Now, the Police Service of Northern Ireland is calling on the government to officially name him as the agent codenamed Steak Knife. Our Ireland correspondent, Stephen Murphy, reports now from Belfast.
In the middle of a dirty, brutal war, he rose to become its most famous mole. Freddie Scappaticci, the Belfast brickie turned spy catcher, the IRA man who hunted informers all the while in the pocket of the Crown. Codenamed Steak Knife, he was implicated in dozens of murders, kidnapping and torture, while his British handlers allowed people to die to protect their golden egg.
I just want to know the truth. It's 45 years ago, almost to the day, since my brother was taken and tortured by Steak Knife.
A team investigating his activities now urging the UK government to finally confirm that Steak Knife was the late Freddie Scappaticci.
As this final report makes clear, we in Canova believe there is a compelling ethical case for the UK government to derogate from the NCND policy regarding the agent Steak Knife's identity. It is in the public interest that Steak Knife is named.
You're both urging the UK government to name finally Steak Knife and to reveal his identity. Is that enough? Shouldn't you be really urging the UK government and the Prime Minister to issue a full apology?
So I have a very strong position that that should happen. I was very clear in March last year. And the response from previous Secretary of State was because of ongoing legal matters that couldn't happen. Well, I'm afraid I think that's utter nonsense.
The Northern Ireland Secretary seemed to pour cold water on the idea of naming Steak Knife.
The government's first duty is, of course, to protect national security, and identifying agents risks jeopardising this.
The investigation team had harsh words for MI5, which only provided valuable material late in the process, hindering investigators. This was a significant failure, they said. MI5 has apologised.
I'm telling you, I'm not guilty of any of these allegations.
Defiant to the last, Scapitici died 2 years ago, having never been charged with a Troubles-related crime. Prosecutors have already decided this investigation will not result in any new prosecutions. For the victims of the dirtiest of spy games, it feels the chance of real justice has been buried with steak knife. Stephen Murphy, Sky News in Belfast.
A major review into maternity care has found that women were left to bleed in bathrooms, ignored and patronised by staff, and babies suffered avoidable deaths. Its chair, Baroness Amos, says she's shocked by the scale of the scandal she's uncovered. But parents say they have no hope that it will lead to any real change. This report now from our health correspondent, Laura Bundock.
I was sick up to 30 to 36 times a day. I couldn't function, but I was never believed. I was told everybody gets sick in pregnancy. Even when I was laying on a toilet floor in A&E for 6 hours, unable to get up, they still didn't believe me.
I nearly lost my baby due to doctors not listening to me. I was sent home at 6 a.m. with contractions that were 3 minutes apart. The doctor was rude and discharged me. I drove home while in labour.
My midwife told me to stop making noise and refused to give me gas and air. No one came to check on me for over an hour, and I was on my own and terrified with my first baby.
These birth stories shared with Sky News are shocking and sobering, each voice reflecting a failing system, and all a reminder why the maternity investigation is so badly needed. Its preliminary report highlights depressingly familiar problems: women not being listened to, a lack of empathy or care when things go wrong, discrimination of Black and Asian women and those who are younger or poorer, and a lack of basic care like help going to the loo or getting meals. During the last decade, 748 recommendations have been made about NHS maternity services, but the system is still failing.
It just cannot continue. There is too much harm, too much distress, too much trauma, and the long-term consequences for families, for communities, and for all of us are almost unbearable.
Rebecca formed a campaign after experiencing 2 traumatic births. For her, the investigation's initial report is deeply disappointing.
It seems as though it is heading the same way that other reviews have gone in the past, leading to some recommendations, but no teeth. We really need some mechanisms that are going to hold people and hold systems to account so that we can see change.
The full findings will be published in the spring. There is huge demand for action, but after so many failures, many a doubtful, meaningful change will be delivered. Laura Bundock, Sky News, Oxford.
Thousands of homes are without power after Storm Bram smashed into the UK and Ireland with 90-mile-an-hour winds, rain and floods. Parts of Yorkshire suffered heavy rain and strong winds, with some areas underwater. 25,000 homes, farms and businesses are without power currently, and the storm has caused major travel delays. Well, these are pictures of the storm hitting the coast of Ireland. 91 flights were cancelled at Dublin Airport due to strong winds, with others diverted to other airports. While in Scotland, ferries were cancelled, rail services disrupted as gusts reached more than 90 miles an hour in exposed areas. More than 30 flood warnings remain in force across parts of the country, with the authorities warning of coastal flooding. Now, teenagers in Australia are waking up without social media. The ban for under-16s came into force a few hours ago, shutting down their access to sites including TikTok, YouTube, Instagram and Facebook. But let's speak now to Sky's Nicole Johnson, who's in Sydney. The Australian Prime Minister telling youngsters to go and read a book or take up a new sport. So how has this gone down?
Well, I think Australian youths are used to hearing that sort of thing from their teachers, parents, and now the Prime Minister. I think it'll wash off them, really. It is a massive change for this country. It is a huge social experiment. That's what it's being referred to as. I've heard about young people being really emotional over the last few days as their apps were gradually closed down, because this isn't something that's just happened overnight. For the last couple of weeks, these big tech companies have been kicking those under the age of 16 in Australia off their apps. But there is concern, of course. It isn't sort of widespread support across the board. There are lots of parents and lots of young people as well who see the benefit of having a social media account, especially those from diverse communities in isolated, outback, remote areas of Australia, young people who have businesses and who are influencers. So there has been a lot of debate and division in this country about it, but it is going ahead. Today is the day that those young people can no longer access those social media apps. But we know that they are finding ways around it, that people are passing messages to each other about what they can do to trick the age verification. They're also going on to alternative platforms and expect that more will spring up that will replace them. But the government says that this is a moving piece of legislation. If necessary, it will add other social media platforms to the ban. But I think one of the most interesting viewpoints I heard is that what they're really hoping for, the advocates of this, is a social change in Australia in a similar way to smoking largely being banned in public places here. It is considered sort of uncouth or antisocial to smoke in Australia now. And it is hoped for those advocates who are supporting this ban that this will bring about a similar change in the thinking of Australians towards social media. But people here also know that the rest of the world is watching, from Europe to Asia, that governments, many of them are concerned about children and their social media use. So they want to see how Australia goes. But no one is expecting that this ban will be an easy rollout. It's likely that there'll be all sorts of problems. But regardless of that, the government says that it has to try.
We're certainly watching closely. Nicole, thank you. Well, in sport, it was a busy night of Champions League action. Liverpool clinched victory over Inter Milan in their first match without Mo Salah. Arne Slot's side were awarded a penalty in the 88th minute, which Dominic Szoboszlai scored to secure the win. And Tottenham make it back-to-back wins by beating Slavia Prague 3-0 to boost their hopes of qualifying for the Champions League knockout stages. While Chelsea's hopes of an automatic place in the last 16 suffered a blow as Enzo Maresca's side lost 2-1 against Atalanta, Chelsea took the lead through João Pedro, but the Italian side came from behind to win late on. Now, Donald Trump promised his return to the White House would bring about a new golden age of America. However, a global trade war sparked by his controversial tariffs has instead created an uncertain reality. Our economics and data editor, Ed Conway, has spent time on the front lines of Trump's trade war, looking into the impact of this economic experiment.
Over the past year, I have been travelling the world in search of an answer. How on earth do you tell and do justice to a story like the trade war that we're going through right now, the potential breakup of globalization? This is the border between Canada and America. And while there's a river running between them, you couldn't really get a better example of two completely intertwined economies. Parts for motor cars going across on the bridge behind me from Canada to America and back again, potentially picking up tariffs on the way.
Modern passenger vehicles are assembled from thousands of tiny components. Here at Lanex, they make steel parts you'd only ever see if you look beneath the body of a car, as well as these strikers that secure the vehicle doors when you close them. Making door strikers is not a sexy business. You need to bend and extrude thick steel rods and press steel coil into just the right shape before welding it all together. But, and this is the key part, each of these little components is made not just in Canada, but also in America.
I mean, everything is intertwined. We don't just have Canadian suppliers on one program start to finish. So you would buy your material from the US side. You would process it on the Canadian side.
Consider the journey one of these striker plates takes in its production.
The steel comes from Wixon, just northwest of Detroit. It crosses the border to the Lanex plant in Canada. Then it's sent to Brampton, Ontario for heat treating, before travelling back across the border to Warren, in the suburbs of Detroit, for plating. Then the part goes back over the border to Canada again, where it's packaged and sent to Lanex's customer, who then sends it back over the border to assembly plants on the US side. This little component has crossed the border 4 times, but it's one tiny example of how much trade is embedded in the goods we use. If Donald Trump is going to be successful in trying to unpick globalization, trying to bring production, some of it in Canada, back to America, well, this is the front line of that story. And we've started to see the impact of his decisions. It is an extraordinary illustration of something that no politician has really ever tried before.
Yes, we are expecting to hear Donald Trump speaking about affordability in America shortly after 11 o'clock this evening. But also, if you scan the QR code on your screen right now, you can watch an extended version of Ed's report. It will be played in full on Friday night as well. Now, the Scottish artist Nena Kalu has won the Turner Prize for 2025. She's the first artist with a learning disability to win the £25,000 prize. Well, the Glaswegian, who is best known for her large-scale abstract drawings and hanging sculptures, took home the prize at an awards ceremony earlier this evening. The judges applauded Kalu for her bold and compelling work and praised her brightly coloured sculptures, which were wrapped in ribbon and VHS tape. Colourful stuff indeed. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers and the press preview tonight, joined by the political commentator Adam Bolton and the journalist and broadcaster Sonia Soda. Welcome to both of you. Among the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front page of the Financial Times, that representatives for Mr. Trump have given Volodymyr Zelensky just days to respond to a US-drafted peace plan. Back with more stories in just a moment.
If you have a picture in your head of how the global economy works, it probably looks a bit like this. Container ships, ports, goods transported around the world. This is globalization. The heartbeat of commerce around us. The invisible force keeping us supplied with essentials and trinkets. So what happens when you try to turn this world upside down? This is the inside story of how the world economy really works and what's really happening at the front line of Donald Trump's trade war.